Welcome back, everyone. You're tuning into another episode of Podcast and Chill. I'm Leo, always here to add a bit of laughter to your day.
And I'm Gwen, here to give you the best tips and tricks for your daily grind. Today we're diving into a topic that resonates with many of our listeners.
Yes, we're talking about the classic dilemma. I can understand English, but I can't speak it well.
It's a frustrating situation for many learners out there.
Absolutely, Gwen. But fear not, folks. We've got some great strategies to help you break through that barrier.
That's right. Speaking English fluently is a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice and the right approach. So today, we're here to guide you on this journey and share some personal stories along the way.
Let's get started. And remember, it's all about taking small steps towards big improvements. So let's dive into this listening speaking gap. Why do you think it exists, Gwen?
Great question, Leo. One main reason is the lack of practice. Many learners listen a lot, but don't get enough speaking practice.
That makes sense. Listening is passive, but speaking is active. You need to actually use the language to improve speaking skills.
Exactly, Leo. Another reason is the fear of making mistakes. This fear can stop people from speaking even if they understand everything.
I see. So it's like being afraid to jump into the pool because you think you might sink.
Absolutely. And there's also the issue of mental translation. Many learners translate from their native language to English in their heads, which slows down their speaking significantly.
That must be exhausting, constantly translating every sentence before you say it.
It is, Leo, and it prevents the kind of spontaneous conversation that fluent speakers have.
Makes sense. What about thinking speed? I've heard that's a big barrier too.
Right, you are. If your brain isn't trained to think quickly in English, it can be hard to keep up in a conversation.
So it's really about building that mental agility to switch between languages seamlessly.
Yeah, and that takes us back to the practice. The more you speak, the better your brain gets at processing and producing English naturally.
It's like working out, but for your brain.
Exactly, Leo. And just like muscles, it needs regular workouts to stay in shape.
So, Gwen, talking about breaking the silence, how do we start tackling this fear of speaking English?
Well, Leo, the first step is acknowledging the fear. Accept that it's okay to be scared, but don't let that stop you.
That's right, Gwen. It's like diving into a pool. The water might be cold at first, but you'll get used to it.
Exactly. And start with small steps. Maybe practice speaking English with friends or in front of a mirror.
I've heard about this mirror practice before. It sounds funny, but effective.
It is, Leo. It helps you see your own expressions and slowly builds confidence as you watch yourself improve.
And don't forget about recording yourself. Sometimes listening to your own voice can help you notice improvements or areas that need work.
True. Also, setting small, achievable goals can make the process less daunting. Like, today I'll learn 5 new words, or I'll start a conversation at the store.
Breaking it down like that makes it seem more manageable. What about embracing mistakes?
Absolutely essential, Leo. We learn from mistakes, not from being perfect. Embrace them as part of the learning curve.
Makes you think of them as stepping stones rather than stumbling blocks.
Precisely. And remember, every conversation you start, even if it ends in a mix-up, is a victory.
I love that approach. It's turning the journey into something exciting and explorative rather than stressful.
Yes, and by speaking out, you're not only improving your language skills, but also your self-esteem.
So folks, remember, start small, embrace mistakes, and use every opportunity to practice. That's how you break the silence.
And soon enough, you'll find that fear of speaking becoming less and less significant.
Moving on, Gwen, let's dive into how our listeners can practice speaking daily. Even when they're alone, there's plenty to do, right?
Absolutely, Leo. A great way to start is by narrating your daily activities. Describe what you're doing as if you're in a documentary.
That sounds fun. So I could say something like, here we see Leo preparing his morning coffee, a crucial ritual for his productivity.
Exactly, Leo. And another method is to use technology. There are plenty of apps that allow you to talk and give you feedback.
Apps? Huh? Can they really replace talking to real people?
They can't replace human interaction, but they are a fantastic supplement, especially for pronunciation practice. Speaking of which, reading aloud is another excellent practice. It helps with both pronunciation and fluency.
So just grab a book and start reading? Any book will do?
Well, it's best to choose something at your level, and maybe something fun or interesting to you, so it doesn't feel like a chore.
What about talking to your pets? I bet they're great listeners.
Absolutely, Leo. Speaking to pets or even to plants can make the practice more entertaining and less stressful. And let's not forget the classic talking to yourself in the mirror. It's a great way to build confidence.
I do that all the time, not just for English practice, honestly.
Well, that explains a lot, Leo. But seriously, folks, all these methods can help you integrate English speaking into your daily life without feeling too much pressure. So keep it fun, keep it regular, and soon you'll see the improvement.
All right, Gwen, let's talk about another fantastic tip, mimicking masters. What's that all about?
It's about learning from the best, Leo. Listening to native speakers and trying to imitate their pronunciation and intonation can really help.
Like trying to talk like a famous actor or a news anchor, right?
Exactly. You can choose someone whose English you admire and listen to how they speak. It's not just about copying, it's about understanding the rhythm and flow of the language.
And how can our listeners practice this, Gwen?
A good start is to watch videos or listen to recordings. Try to repeat after them, match their tone, and even their facial expressions.
So, you're saying I should start talking like I'm presenting the evening news? Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, if that helps you improve, why not? But remember, it's about learning the subtleties of pronunciation, not just mimicking for fun.
Got it. And it sounds like a lot of fun, actually. Could this help with learning slang and idioms too?
Absolutely. By mimicking native speakers, you not only learn standard pronunciation, but also pick up on casual language and cultural nuances that textbooks might not cover.
Documentary. Definition: a factual film or program about real events and people. Example: describe what you're doing as if you're in a documentary. Fluency. Definition: the ability to speak or write a language easily, smoothly, and expressively. Example: it helps with both pronunciation and fluency. Integrate. Definition: combine one thing with another so that they become a whole. Example: all these methods can help you integrate English speaking into your daily life. Supplement. Definition: something that is added to something else to improve it or complete it. Example: they can't replace human interaction, but they are a fantastic supplement. Mimicking. Definition: imitating someone's actions, speech, or mannerisms, especially to entertain, ridicule, or learn from them. Example: listening to native speakers and trying to imitate their pronunciation and intonation can really help. What is one method mentioned for practicing English speaking alone? One method mentioned for practicing English speaking alone is narrating daily activities. Describing what you're doing as if you're narrating a documentary, which helps integrate English speaking into daily life and makes the practice enjoyable and less pressured. What are some benefits of using technology for English speaking practice? Technology, particularly apps that allow you to talk and receive feedback, is a fantastic supplement for pronunciation practice. While it can't replace human interaction, It serves as a valuable tool for learners to practice speaking and receive immediate corrections or suggestions, which is essential for improving pronunciation skills. Moving on to another crucial aspect of mastering English, Gwen. Let's dive into the from passive to active strategy.
Sure, Leo. This is about turning passive exposure into active learning practices. It's vital for truly mastering a language.
Could you explain more about what passive language reception is?
Passive language learning is when you absorb the language through activities that don't require active speaking or writing, like listening to music, watching TV, or reading.
And active learning means?
It means engaging with the language through speaking, writing, or any form of output that forces you to use the language actively.
How can our listeners start making this transition?
One simple step is to start reflecting on what you listen to or read. Ask yourself questions about it and try to summarize it in English.
Sounds like turning every opportunity into a learning session.
Exactly. Also, instead of just listening passively, try to repeat phrases and even shadow speakers to practice pronunciation and intonation.
I guess turning on subtitles while watching shows could help too, right?
Definitely. It's a great way to connect spoken language with written words and helps reinforce learning.
What about turning passive book reading into active learning?
After reading a chapter, write a short summary or discuss it with friends in English. Even better, post your thoughts online to get feedback.
That sounds quite engaging and definitely pushes you to use English in a practical way.
Yes, and don't forget to actively learn vocabulary. Instead of just memorizing, use new words and sentences and try to use them in daily conversations.
That must make the learning process much more dynamic and memorable.
Absolutely, Leo. It's all about making your brain work actively with the language.
So, Gwen, let's talk about how to kickstart a conversation. This can really help our listeners engage with native speakers.
Absolutely, Leo. Initiating conversation is often the hardest part, but it's crucial for practicing your English.
What are some good conversation starters that our listeners could use?
One effective starter is asking about local food recommendations. It's something everyone loves to talk about.
That's true. Everyone has an opinion on where to find the best pizza or burger.
Another one is asking about what shows or movies they would recommend. It's a great way to learn about cultural preferences too.
Sounds like it could lead to some interesting discussions.
Definitely. Discussing hobbies is also a great starter. You can ask, what do you like to do in your free time?
That could really open up the conversation. Plus, it's a great way to find common interests.
Asking about travel experiences is another good one. Have you traveled anywhere exciting recently?
People love sharing their travel stories. It might even give our listeners tips for their own travels.
Yes, and for those who are a bit shy, starting with a compliment can ease into a conversation gently, like commenting on a piece of clothing or a gadget.
That's a smooth way to get chatting. Just make sure it's genuine.
Right. And remember, the goal is to keep the conversation going. Use open-ended questions that require more than a yes or no answer.
Can you give an example of an open-ended question?
Sure, like asking, what did you think about the event last night? Instead of, did you go to the event last night?
That makes a lot of sense. It invites a story rather than a simple response.
Exactly. And don't forget, the more you practice these conversation starters, the easier they will become.
That's encouraging. Our listeners should definitely give these a try. Thanks for all these great tips, Gwen.
You're welcome, Leo. Remember, it's all about taking that first step and just starting the conversation.
Moving on to the most crucial aspect of speaking English confidence. Let's dive into why it's so essential.
Absolutely, Leo. Confidence isn't just about feeling good. It directly impacts how effectively we can communicate in a new language.
So, you're saying it's a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, right? If you believe you can speak well, you just might.
Exactly. When we feel confident, we're less likely to hesitate or second-guess ourselves, which leads to smoother and more fluent conversations.
But how does one build that confidence, especially if they're just starting out?
It starts with setting realistic goals. Don't expect to be perfect. Focus on progress and celebrating small victories.
Like understanding a full movie in English or having a conversation without translating in your head?
Right. Those are great examples. And remember, each little step builds your confidence over time.
I suppose making mistakes is part of the process too, right?
Absolutely. Making mistakes and learning from them is key. It means you're trying, which is better than not speaking at all.
And getting feedback from others can help too, right?
Yes, feedback is incredibly valuable. It helps you understand what to improve and reinforces that you're on the right track.
Sounds like building confidence in speaking English is a lot about mindset and practice.
Exactly, Leo. It's all about embracing the journey and not being afraid to express yourself. The more you speak, the more natural it becomes.
That's very encouraging. It makes me want to go out and start chatting with everyone.
And you should, Leo. Every conversation is a step towards fluency. Crucial. Definition: extremely important or necessary. Example: moving on to another crucial aspect of mastering English, Gwen. Transition. Definition: the process or a period of changing from one state or condition to another. Example: how can our listeners start making this transition? Reflecting. Definition: thinking deeply or carefully about. Example: one simple step is to start reflecting on what you listen to or read. Engaging. Definition: charming and holding the interest or attention of. Example: that sounds quite engaging and definitely pushes you to use English in a practical way. Initiating. Definition: causing the beginning of something. Example: so, Gwen, let's talk about how to kickstart a conversation. What is the difference between passive and active language learning? Passive language learning involves absorbing the language through non-interactive activities like listening to music, watching TV, or reading, where no active use of language is required. Active language learning, on the other hand, involves engaging with the language through activities that require output and interaction, such as speaking and writing. Why is confidence considered crucial in learning to speak English? Confidence is crucial because it impacts the effectiveness of communication in a new language. Feeling confident reduces hesitation and second-guessing, which leads to smoother and more fluent conversations. Confidence allows learners to be less fearful of making mistakes, thereby encouraging more practice and interaction.
Well, folks, that wraps up today's episode on gaining confidence in speaking English. I hope you all feel a bit more inspired to go out and speak your mind.
Definitely, Leo. Remember, everyone, speaking English fluently starts with believing in yourself and embracing every opportunity to practice.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for more helpful tips and some good laughs with us every week.
And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to explore, send us a message. We love hearing from our listeners.
Until next time, keep practicing and stay confident. This is Leo and Gwen, signing off from Podcast and Chill.
Until next time, keep practicing and stay confident.